We were very complacent and we did not want to enter the war.
I took a 5-year nursing course.
I was a senior in high school.
Yeah, I was in the Naval Reserve.
I was only 14.
I was at a friend's home on a farm.
They told me, bring up my grades or get out.
My next door neighbor came over and visited me, and he told me
Roosevelt was on the radio.
Japanese and bombed Pearl Harbor.
They announced it over the whole system
The
there.
president declared war on Japan.
The recruiting offices were jammed.
As soon as that happened, I went down and joined the Navy.
I enlisted when I was 17 years old.
I joined the Navy at age 18.
I enlisted in 1942.
The war had started and I decided to get out.
We left with 12 planes that were headed for Okinawa.
When I told my mother I was going in, she said, "My land, why would you want to do a thing like that? What would your father say?" And I told her, I said, "Well, I know my father would have been proud of me."
Jack L. Barth, I was in the Corps of Engineers, 395th Combat Engineers. I spent probably 4 months in England before the invasion, and then I had a motorcycle, and it was put on a tank, and I was D+1. We landed in the tank. I left from Southampton, and we hit Normandy. Well, the invasion had just been ahead of us. And as soon as I hit the beach, we took my motorcycle off the tank, and the tank disappeared. I don't know where he went. And I didn't know where my outfit went either. And then I met him at St. Lo. And at St. Lo, we couldn't take St. Lo. It was too well fortified. So we had to pull back. And we all got dug in as deep as we could go because they told us there's going to be a lot of bombing. So sure enough, the next morning, we heard there were 3,000 airplanes. It was an awful lot, but I don't really know. And they were all silver. They weren't painted. I remember that. It looked like the sun shining out in the morning. And they bombed St. Lo till, it was horrible. So we went in, there was no resistance. But all the time I was in reconnaissance. I was the company reconnaissance. I would ride ahead of the convoy. You were tense all the time, because you never knew what was around the corner. We had 6 motorcycles, and we were the only 6 motorcycles in our division. I lost track of all the other ones, because I was alone. So I don't know what happened to them. I know 2 of them were killed. And I was captured at Aschersleben. And the Germans had a habit of turning signs around to confuse us. They marched me through the town. Some little kid with a German Luger was threatening to kill me, and the guard said, "No, we interrogate. And the kid, no, I shoot. No, interrogate." So they run him off. And then after I got freed, I looked for that little kid, but I didn't catch him. Then they put me in a farmhouse, 300 British prisoners. Well, then I felt a little more comfortable because I had somebody else with me. One American comes walking around a hill and freed us. He had an army behind him, but he was proud. He was front. When the war ended, my outfit was going home, but they lost my papers. Well, when I was a prisoner, they didn't know I was captured. So I was just missing in action. And they didn't have my records. So my whole outfit's going home, but they had no records to ship me home. So they sent me to Paris to wait until they could hunt up my records and find out who had them. And finally they said, we got your records. So they sent me to Le Havre to ship out, and there's my outfit. I went home with my outfit, but I was unattached. So they're all having to do scrub decks and stuff like that. Not me. I did to watch them. It was funny.
I was on several ships while I was in the Navy, and active duty as a signalman. We didn't have any combat duty because of the ones I was on until we were headed for Iwo Jima. So we were just a few miles offshore, and you could see everything going on during the battle time. Our troops and then the Japanese and the bombing and so forth. So I could pretty much see what was going. I heard someone say, "There she goes," and looked over at the island on the top part and saw this flag go up. It made me real proud to be an American there.
This is the kind of ship I was on.
Okay.
It's an amphibious gunship. We drew 6 feet of water. We were flat bottom, and we operated in 10 feet of water easily. They built us so that we could go over the reef and go in. We had 2 rocket racks, not missiles, rockets. And 300 yards, we could fire them and clear the beach. Then the day of invasion, we were first in, and we would make 2 passes on the shore. Then the first LCVPs with the Marines or the soldiers would go by us. And we would set out 100 yards or so from shore, and the Marines would come out with a walkie-talkie and tell us where we would have had to try to fire our rockets inland or fire our guns close. My position was a signalman. I was up on the tower, up on that tower, on the top or on the back, behind the tower on the signal bridge.
I heard a Japanese say that it wouldn't be long, we'd all be speaking Japanese and stuff. And I decided, I didn't tell my folks, I just went by myself, and I decided to be a Marine. But the Marines' billets were full. Then I walked over to the Navy recruiting office. And then I went home and I told my family, I said, I joined the United States Navy. I am now away. And they sent me to Oklahoma A&M. Navy had taken over. I was a secretary. All I had to learn was the Navy way of doing things. And then I was sent to Naval Air Station in Millington, Tennessee.
Well, the first one I was on was a sub-chaser, SC-1313, and we patrolled the South Atlantic and all them islands that you see people going on vacation now, St. Thomas and all around there. And it was an anti-submarine boat, and we had the skipper on there that was just a young guy out of college, and it was the holy terror.
I was working at Camp Grant. I was a medical secretary because we had soldiers in training and they got sick and they had to come to the hospital. And if you were a civilian, and I was,
We worked 6 days a week. We had one holiday a year, and that was Christmas. The Japanese worked with me, and we were social. They were my age, and they were citizens, and they worked in the office. The Army made sure the Japanese never carried a gun. That was part of that's why they were in the U.S. Medical Corps.
So I went to Rockford, Illinois with 3 other girls, and we became Rosies. and I got a job with J.I. Case Company, who had previously made agriculture equipment, tractors and stuff. And I got a job making B-26 gap covers for the wings. And a gap cover is the leading edges of the wings were in 2 sections, so they had to be put together. So I made a gap cover for them.
Went to Hunter College. That's where we had our boot camp. And I was there 6 weeks, and then I went to San Diego Naval Hospital, where I got my corps school. Well, in Balboa Park, they had moved the animals out of the zoo and used those buildings for the Navy. The first patients I had were from Guadalcanal, and they looked so young. One kid, 15, lied about his age and got in. And they were so eager to talk to. One man said, "Say something, just say anything. I want to hear a woman's voice." From there, I went to Corona Naval Hospital, and that was most of the patients there were ambulatory, and they had been moved there from other naval hospitals along the base. Almost all of them had malaria.
It was about a week after we got there that we went ashore with the Marines, which had been already taken by our Marines, but that's the only part they had right along the shore. We had a lot of bombing from Japanese planes coming over from Japan. The Japanese would hide in the wrecked planes during the nighttime, then come out in the daytime and start sniping at our Marines and everything who were right around them. And I was getting my canteen filled, and all of a sudden I heard a swishing sound. We sent some Marines over to get them out of the way.
Japan was training 15-year-old kids, and they would go up with a bomber or a fighter plane, and their purpose was not to bomb or to strafe. Their purpose was suicide bombers called kamikaze. During the Okinawa campaign, all the LCSs that were all there, all around that island and working, the total LCSs in 1 month had knocked down 1,000 kamikazes. But the destroyers knocked down a lot more because their guns had a higher and longer range.
Right.
But we lost more destroyers and more men off Okinawa than we did the whole campaign of the Pacific because of the kamikazes. And it's at this time that we could go alongside a destroyer that would take a kamikaze and they'd be on fire. And in the bow of our ship, we had a whole setup of nozzles and hose. And we could go alongside and fight the fires.
Right.
And then if they had a lot of casualties, we could take them and put them on our outside deck and take them ashore to the Army hospitals or things. And it was at that time that a couple of Navy admirals saw all the work that we were doing, besides just going for the invasion. They gave us a name. They called us the Mighty Midgets.
I enlisted in 1942 and spent most of my war years up in the Aleutian Islands. Spent about 4 years up there, and most of those islands were occupied by the Japanese, Kiska and Attu. So my primary duties were as a sonarman, were anti-submarine escort duties and search and rescue. When we went in to take over Attu and Kiska, especially in Attu, the Japanese retreated up into the mountains. And of course they started running out of food and freezing to death, and at one time they came down in a bonsai attack. And of course we lost about 600 of our troops. And the Japanese were annihilated. There was no prisoners taken.
You know, the news was so bad that it was scary. It really was.
One of the best jobs I had was on the battleship Iowa. I had 16-inch turret number 1 on there. As you can see my pictures there. My head sticking out of the barrel.
Yes, yes.
And I had and on the 16-inch, I put 7 years and 4 months on that ship.
Wow, it's a good thing that wasn't loaded.
Huh?
Or were you the loaded one?
Were you loaded on there?
Yeah.
The first wave that was assigned to the TV unit, keeping track of all the records and reading all the records were really interesting. Like one group of kids went on a ship. They shipped out. Once the ship leaves the shore, they don't communicate. And they found out after the ship had taken out that the cook, or one of the cooks, had TB. And they couldn't get a hold of the ship because there's no communication. And these kids came back with TB. A lot of them died. Yeah.
I was standing, doing something right out in that war zone. I smelled something, a kind of rotten smell, and I turned around. And this was on a road. I saw this truck. It had bodies of our Marines that had been shot and killed. You get immune to that. After I'd been on there a couple of days, that's all you see, the dead Japanese, the ones that our Marines got, and some of our own dead people. That's the only way I can describe it. I think there was around 6,000 Marines who were killed.
Our ship was very lucky. God was with us. We never had one machine gun bullet go through us, and nobody ever got hit. But as we're out there, doing our job, we knew that the bullets were there because we would hear them go by. Wing, 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 wing. We called them the bumblebees.
Sometimes I was wondering when am I going to get it next, but I was really blessed.
The Japanese Americans were my friends. They were very loyal Americans. Some congressmen in Washington heard about what was going on in the medical corps. They were doing a wonderful job, they were my age. But he got busy and started complaining.
We had pictured them as ogres and bad guys.
All of a sudden, they were put in the infantry with guns, and they were medical corpsmen. They ended up invading Sicily, and I think 3/4 of them were slaughtered. I call it slaughtered. And it was very sad that we treated them the way we did.
There wasn't a lot of bad feeling toward the end of the war against the Japanese, but at the start of it was terrible.
We went to Chicago and joined the Marine Corps on January 4th, 1944. We both went into motor transport, so we got trucks to drive. My first assignment as a private was to drive officers to Washington, D.C. I did that for a month, but I didn't like it because, you know, I was a private, so I couldn't associate with the people I was driving up with. Officers and enlisted are not to associate. So I asked for a truck, and I got a garbage truck. And I had 2 black Marines. They were on the back of my truck, and they were really nice guys. And we went around Officers Hill and picked up the GI, they picked up the GI cans, and I drove the truck. On the way coming down the hill, I looked to the side, and there was the general's car with his star uncovered on the front. When you come up to a general's car and the star is uncovered, it means the general's in the car. And you don't go around it, you don't cross in front of it, you don't cross the intersection. And I was supposed to stop, back up, and let that car come in front of me. Well, I couldn't stop on the hill. The 2 boys in the back would have slid right into the cab. So I kept going. When I got back to the motor transport garage, there was the captain waiting for me. He took my license. He said, no more driving in Quantico. You can sweep streets. I had 2 weeks of mess duty because of that. And they took my stripe away because I crossed in front of them. And they gave me a push broom and a stick with a nail on the end of it. And I swept the streets and picked up cigarette butts for 9 months. And they were keeping me there as an example of what happens when you don't follow orders. And I had an awful time getting out of there. But I finally got transferred to San Diego.
As soon as I turned 18, I joined the Navy because at that time, all of the young people, when I was 17, as soon as you were 18, you got drafted. And they were putting them all in the Marines. And the Marines were getting slaughtered down in the South Pacific. They were getting killed left and right.
I enlisted when I was 17 on St. Patrick's Day in 1945. I came from a small town, West Stockbridge, Massachusetts, and the population was about 1,000 people. But we had quite a few young guys that went in service. And one of my neighbors, who I knew very well, I saw his picture in a foxhole. And I just said, I don't want to die in a foxhole. So I enlisted in the Navy.
Boot camp up in New York on Lake Seneca, the 5 lakes, to the Navy boot camp. And we had muster one morning at 7 o'clock. And a chief petty officer came up, called out, Carl Yulee, come forward. And so the other chief says, come with me. He says, the captain wants to see you. I thought they were going to throw me out of the Navy because I had 2 first cousins. One was a Messerschmitt pilot in the German Air Force, and another was a German Army officer in the Army. When he took me up to the captain of the base, He congratulated me and told me what a fine young man I was and everything, you know, and what God was he up to. He says, when you joined the Navy, you joined a USNR, United States Naval Reserve. You've got to obligate yourself for 5 years to join the Navy, the regular Navy, USN. So he asked me whether I was willing to do that, sign up for 5 years. And I told him yes, I would. So he accepted me into the officer flight program.
I'm Wallace Eugene Duffin, and I was in World War II. I was a radio operator on a B-24 group.
And my name is Jacob Richard Morgan, and my final rank was a captain medical corps in the Navy. My original rank was ensign, and I was a gunnery officer.
We left with 12 planes that were headed for Okinawa, which was just a pile of rocks. Everything was so destroyed, so bombed out.
We went to where my ship was, and the battleship South Dakota, and it was near Japan, and they transferred me by a tow line, you know, dangling in the air. We were in Incheon under maneuvers for the invasion of Japan. We went right to the shore of Japan and fired right into Japan. We did this several times.
The ocean was just black with ships right off the coast of Okinawa, ready for the big invasion.
One time we saw a dirty cloud way in the distance, and I think that was the first atomic bomb that was dropped. You know, but Japan did not surrender. The kamikazes, these suicide planes, would attack us, and so we would shoot them down. And then after several trips to the shore of Japan, we came back and we heard that the second bomb had dropped, and that Japan had finally decided to surrender.
And of course we were amazed like everybody else.
And one of the radiomen suddenly pulled a no-no. He turned on his outside speaker and started screaming.
The war is over, and everybody yelling.
Your horns honking.
I remember feeling very relieved.
Now I can go home.
And I got counted my points, and I was one of the first to come home.
The kamikazes still attacked us, and Admiral Halsey was on the ship, and he said, "Shoot them down in a friendly fashion."
They fixed up our B-24, put a plywood flooring in the Bombay area, and had it fixed up for 20 prisoners aboard. We loaded the prisoners and took off, but the typhoon just kind of followed us. My pilot was wise enough to get out to the edge of it. He didn't go over Taiwan, or Formosa, it was called then, but he skirted it and went out and around. But when we were just past Taiwan, I picked up a radio SOS, and it was one of our B-24s that went down. We circled around and looking for survivors, and wherever we could see somebody swimming around with a jacket on, we'd drop a smoke bomb in that area, and it would send up a column of smoke. And then I got in touch with a British freighter of some kind and they started picking up these people. So then we just headed off to the Philippines. But the cloud cover was still low, and we were running on a thin fuel mixture, and the engines were running pretty hot on that, just to make it to the Philippines. When they come out to inspect the plane, and we were told that we told them that we were pretty low on gas. They checked the gas tanks. They couldn't find any gas. They said, "You must be running on fumes." So out of the 5 that left on that day, B-24s, only 2 that made it.
So I was on this transport ship to Yokosuka, Japan, where we let all the troops off.
We pulled into Yokosuka and we tied up next to the Missouri. And then when the surrender took place, we observed the surrender. We could see Nimitz and MacArthur and the Japanese signing the treaty.
Government came up with the idea that they would give everybody a train trip ticket home. And my friend, actually, she was in the next bunk, and I decided we would go up to San Francisco, and we make train reservations for all the service personnel coming in on ships to San Francisco.
We were really some of the first to go into Japan. And so that was exciting to me. We hoped that they would treat us kindly, and they were. They were glad to see the war, and as glad as we were, probably more so. And we met a guy that was ready to go in the service, but he was in his late teens and ready to go in the service. And he spoke good English, and he took us into his home, introduced us to his mother. I never saw any men around, but he interpreted for us. We got to know his mother pretty well, and we learned to take off our shoes before you enter, which is customary for the Japanese, which many of us do now. But I thought that was pretty wise.
Yes.
But before we left, she had to give us a gift. And I think the first gift that we gave us, she gave each of us an egg. And I thought, where did you get that egg? You need it for your sustenance. I didn't want to take it. And her son said, "No, you have to take it." So I didn't want to insult him. We just hesitatingly took it.
We stayed in Japan for almost a year, and for the surrender. I went to Tokyo, but there was nothing to do in Tokyo. Tokyo was flat. There were just shells of buildings.
From Yokosuka, I got on this auxiliary ship. It was an ARL-22, it was a converted LST, and we headed to Okinawa. And on the way, we stopped at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This is only a month or so after the bombs dropped there. And we viewed all of the destruction. We weren't allowed to get off the ship, but we reviewed the destruction. It was all flattened out. There wasn't anybody walking around.
I was sent to Chicago, Illinois, to discharge a lot of the veterans that were coming home from war, transferred from there to the USS Wilmette. And I was on the Wilmette. And the ship was originally built in 1903, had a buoyancy problem, and even though they had the buoyancy problem, they let the ship go. Well, in 1915, Western Electric rented this, and they had 4,000 people that were going to go on the ship for a cruise. It was raining, so they went below deck. And when the ship rolled over, they drowned just like rats trapped into a box. When they remodeled it, politicians being what they are, they made the ship too long to get out of the docks, so they couldn't go to war. They had to bring it back in and chop it down. And by the time they chopped it down, the war was over. And so we were assigned to the ship as a sort of like a fire watch, only we kept the level of the water. We measured the level of the water instead of fire hydrants. That was my war experience.
They had this secret mission going. So we all had to take an oath not to say one word about where we were or what happened. Well, we were in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and the Russian subs spotted us. They followed us for 2 days while we were heading to Eniwetok. They figured we were going to invade somebody because we had a big invasion float. They wondered, what the heck are we up to? They didn't know. We pulled in the harbor at Eniwetok, and we had to have a blackout for 2 days. Had to have all lights outside off on the mast and everything. Had to even cover up our portholes so no light could get through. So after 2 days, well, I guess the Russian subs disappeared. They couldn't find us. Then we had the bombs. Then we had most of the scientists on our ship. The atomic scientists, we're going to check radiation levels and all of that. We had most of those on our ship. 3 bombs that they set off. One was in the air, one was underwater, and one was at sea level. The one at sea level was the most interesting because we got to see that one. This was right at daybreak when the sun come out. Boom! Looking through those goggles, it looked like high noon. It was so bright. It would blind you if you had a look at it. And we could feel a heat, a big blast of heat at us, in this big mushroom cloud forming. Our ship headed right into the blast because the scientists wanted to check radiation levels. And we didn't have any badges or anything to check what radiation levels we were in. And I don't know how far in we got, but we turned around and went back, and so we went back into port. At 6 o'clock in the evening, it started to rain. And from this mushroom cloud, the rain come down and washed all this radiation down on the ship. And our ship got the most of it. They announced on the loudspeaker, all hands, get out on deck. Either grab a hose or a swab. Scientists walking around and the Geiger counters clicking like mad where we were full of radiation. And I didn't go. I walked across the deck to get to my supply office because I had to make a menu for the captain to approve by 10 o'clock. That's when the lights were out. They were washing down the whole ship and scrubbing, and the scientists had them lined up one after another. They had Geiger counters, and they were going up their pant leg and down the side, and the Geiger counters clicking like mad on all of them. They were just loaded with it. They've had 200 or 300 bomb tests since then, atom bomb tests.
Wow.
But they all wear badges now. So if you're in a radiation level where it's real high, you know to get the heck out. We didn't have nothing. We were guinea pigs. I found out, we used to have ship reunions after that. And less would show up. They died. 60 or 70% of them died by the time they were 50.
Wow.
From probably from radiation.
My husband said that he would go wherever I wanted to go. Well, I wanted to go home and live our lives in St. Louis. And so we went home. He wanted to go to college under the GI Bill of Rights, but they were filled. He looked for a job and there wasn't anything available, anything. And my father talked to him and he told him that to really think about staying in the Navy. Right. And of course he loved the Navy.
I got out 3 months before my husband, and I got pregnant right away, of course. I had a hard time adjusting to civilian life. You know, I had nothing in common. You see the people, I didn't know how to dress. You know, I'd been in uniform, and you didn't have to worry about the change of styles. The skirts had come up. All my clothes were outdated, and you didn't have the money to do anything.
Yeah, it was kind of tough after the war because everybody was out looking for a job. I even drove a taxi cab for a while looking for a job. I went tuna fishing and a few other things. Got into real estate and finally ended up just everything started coming together.
Well, I went to Pharmacy and Business Administration in University of Texas in Austin. I hadn't quite finished when they recalled me for the Korea War.
My name is John Abatikola. I was drafted into the Army in Korea back in 1952, and because of my welding ability at the time, I was moved real quick in dealing with welding pipelines all over Korea.
Good morning, my name is George Souza. I was in the U.S. Army with the 2nd Infantry Division, 23rd Regiment F Company.
My name is James Pyburn, and this is my wife, Joy, of 32 years. The Korean War broke out on the 6th day of June, as I recall, in 1950. The night of the 10th of December, I got a call from a mutual friend, and he said, Jimmy, he said, you know, my mother works at the draft board. She mailed your draft notice tonight. Tomorrow when the mail arrives, you're in the Army. And he said, even worse than that, he says, she mailed mine and Ralph's and Harold's, and he says, we've been talking and we have decided that we're going to go down and enlist in the Air Force in the morning. We want to know if you want to go along. And I said, well, I don't think I want to go slogging around in the mud in Korea, so I'll go with you. So we did. We enlisted at 9 o'clock in the morning.
So I went to Korea, and I got on the heavy cruiser, the St. Paul. I was in 3 major battles in Korea, the Battle of Punch Bowl, Bloody Ridge, and I was wounded up in Heartbreak Ridge. And I was the only survivor of my squad. We were wiped out the first day. We had like 3,000 casualties trying to take Heartbreak Ridge. I had shrapnel wounds on my stomach. They sent me back because they needed more men that really got hit pretty heavy.
But I only saw about 3 months of the war. And I made sergeant real quick because, not because I was a great soldier, but because I knew my business as a welder. And I was a big help to him in engineering.
10th day of April 1952, when we flew our first combat mission. Our combat missions consisted of all kinds of things. We had leaflet drops. We flew regular bombing missions that were designed to take out bridges and railroad trestles. And on the 12th day of September in 1952, we had been assigned as lead crew for the 98th Bomb Wing, which meant we led 32 other airplanes over the target that night. Well, the target was a Suiho, S-U-I-H-O, hydroelectric plant, which was a gigantic Boulder Dam size generating station that provided all of the power for North Korea and Manchuria that would span the Yalu River. And part of my job was to crawl down out of the
my blister, my position on the top of the airplane, and looked into the aft bomb bay through a porthole that was there to make sure that after the bombs were dropped, that there was not a bomb or something hung up in the bomb bay, and so that the bombardier could close the bomb bays. And we also waited long enough for the first bombs to go off, and when the first bombs went off, I called impact, which told the bombardier to drop a couple of flash bombs, which created a flash that would trigger a flash-sensitive shutter in a camera that was sticking out the bottom of the airplane. And that's where we got our photos of the damage that we had done and where our bombs fell and what kind of damage we had done. Is called a strike photo. When the second bomb went off, I called impact, and about a second later, all of the lights in North Korea and Manchuria went out. We got back to the airbase, when we got access to the pictures, the second bomb went right down the smokestack on the powerhouse, and that was the aiming point.
Hey, my close buddy, his name was J.C. Coffey from West Virginia. He lied and joined the Army when he was 16. Tough as nails. This kid had no fear. I mean, he's the kind of guy you'd follow hell and back. Tough as a great kid. And he was killed when he was 18.
Wow.
On Heartbreak Ridge. And it was hard for me. When I came out, I was the last one with him, so I called his mother. I had to call his mother. And we both had a good cry. She said, I begged him not to join. He's my only son. Now I have nothing. And it just really touched my heart.
They asked for volunteers to go on a mission ashore. My best buddy went, and 4 officers and 4 men, and they never returned. After the war, I went to visit the wife of my buddy, and I fell in love with her and married her.
A couple of weeks later, we were sent home. We were assigned to come back to the interior, and we were already. We had our in-flight. We had our flight bags and all of our gear and everything all ready to go, and we were waiting for the bus to take us to Haneda Air Force Base, which was at Tokyo, to catch a MATS airplane out to head back for the States. And we got a call to report the flight line that we were going to fly another mission. So we went to the flight line, flew another mission.
And I left Korea in March of '52. I came back, and it's kind of a sad story. I came back to San Francisco. We had like 2,000 men on a ship, wounded and remains. And where's everybody at? Not a soul that greet us. Well, you call it the forgotten war, you know.
Yeah. Came home, went to school, and on the GI money, the money that the veterans got, and became an engineer, and came out west. And I married my wife, 63 years married, and she came from a little village in Italy called Pico. And she knew my grandmother real well there and all my relatives. And based on that, I don't know, I think my grandmother must have arranged that wedding without me realizing it.
I got married just before I went overseas. And my wife got pregnant. I left the Army in November '52. And my father had a fishing boat. And of course, now I've got a family support. So I was home for 2 weeks and went out fishing.
We came home and went to work, got a job, went to work, raised families, bought a little tract house, and kept old cars running because we couldn't afford brand new cars. And so after that, it was just civilian life.
And we went off to medical school. I went back into the Navy. We had a pediatric cardiologist, only hospital pediatric cardiologist west of the Mississippi. Wow. He and his wife and 7 children took a vacation to Kauai.
and he went swimming and got caught in an undertow and drowned. And so we had no pediatric cardiologist, so I read 2 books on pediatric cardiologists and became the pediatric cardiologist for the Navy west of the Mississippi. And I made a lot of new discoveries in children and others with congenital heart disease, and wrote them up in the journals. We decreased the mortality and increased the lifespan in hundreds of thousands of patients worldwide because we reported it, and it was important enough to be put into medical journals worldwide.
You know, I would not change a thing in my life.
That's great.
You know, when I went in the military, I never even heard of Korea. Didn't even know the people. But never talked about it for years. But I went back about 10 years ago, and I was really proud of what we did. You know, American people are generous.
Right.
You know, we go fight for other countries, and we give it back to them.